Eggs. Roll sound. And Mark. Great, thank you. It's all yours, Kelly.
Okay. To begin with, I wonder if you could give me a brief word picture of what life was like in the mid-50s in the South, particularly in Montgomery. And if there's one incident or anecdote as it relates to race relations that you can remember, something that happened to you personally that might explain or illustrate what the South was like in terms of race relations during that time.
Well, in the South, life was full of segregation and laws against the people of color.
Montgomery, Alabama, in 1955 was the beginning.
The Montgomery bus boycott was the start of the civil rights movement. It started when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. This was the first fight for the rights of the African American community. Rosa Parks also served responsibility in stating her place in what she deserved and all the other people of color. There have been segregation laws in Montgomery, Alabama against African Americans, which forced them to sit in the back of the bus. They were also forced to pay at the front, get off, and then come in again through another door. In addition, sometimes the bus drivers would drive off before the African American rider even got the chance to ride. The boycott started in late 1955 to the end of December 1956, where segregation laws were declared unconstitutional, and this boycott had about 30 to 40,000 African American participants throughout the city of Montgomery. One day in March 1955, a 15-year-old Claudette Cloven refused to give up her seat on a city bus. The start of the bus ride went perfectly until the front of the bus was full, and the bus driver forced her to give up her seat for a white man. But she refused, as she said that it was her constitutional right to stay, and got arrested. Similarly, a few months later, Rosa Parks was coming home from a department store where she worked as a tailor's assistant. She waited for the Cleveland bus and then rode it as it was crowded. When she got on, she sat on the first African American row on the bus, which can only be seated in when the back of the bus was full. Soon, the bus filled up, and Rosa Parks was forced to move back as well as the others in her row in favor of a white American, but she didn't comply. She was arrested for not complying and fined $14. Just a few days later, African American activists announced the start of the boycott, and a teacher by the name of Joanne Robinson had created 50,000 protest posters with the help of the Women's Political Council, who contributed towards the bus boycott a lot. Ed Dixon, the president of the local NAACP chapter, organized a meeting on December 5th in Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. In there, they formed the Montgomery Improvement Association, the MIA, to start a boycott against the buses. And on that day, December 5th, 1955, was the start of a 13-month-long boycott. Even though Rosa Parks was the most famous person who was supported by the boycott, many other African Americans went through the same thing, and the boycott was also supporting them. They later elected Martin Luther King Jr. as their leader, and with his leadership, the boycott continued.
They asked me to serve as a spokesman and the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association, and from this time, I found myself in a leadership position in the civil rights struggle.
This lasted 381 days, where African Americans walked, biked, or carpooled to work. As well, more than 200 people volunteered their car to be used as a carpool car. And there were 100 stations where people would be picked up and dropped off at, and this wasn't cheap at all. So, the MIA organized donations in African American churches where they donated money and would hear about the success of the boycott. As 3/4 of the bus riders were African American, The boycott had caused a great economic impact on the bus companies in all of Montgomery. The bus companies were losing about $3,000 each day, which is about $35,000 in today's money. The city of Montgomery also tried many tactics to block the boycott, like forcing regulations for the cab fares, which prevented black drivers from offering lower prices to support the boycotters. Montgomery also tried to force insurance companies to reject or revoke the insurance of African American drivers in favor of the African American drivers to take the buses again. But despite all these things, the African American population, with the support of Martin Luther King Jr., the churches, and other citizens from around the country, their boycott still continued until their demand of racially equal buses were met. The boycott lasted from December 5th to 1955 to December 20th, 1956, when Brother Vigil, a federal ruling declared that racially equal segregated buses was unconstitutional, took effect. Even though the refusal of Rosa Parks to give up her seat took more than a year to take effect, this was an incredible change. The boycott led to financial loss to the bus companies, national attention as the bus caught the attention of many around the country. This boycott was a building block of the civil rights movement. It helped remove the segregation laws because it was proved to be unconstitutional, and helped create inspiration all throughout America. The Montgomery bus boycott was a boycott that started the civil rights movement. It started after Rosa Parks got arrested after refusing to give up her seat in favor of a white man. And from there, men and women from the city of Montgomery started a boycott where they walked, biked, or carpooled to work. This boycott had made a lot of bus companies lose money, about $30,000 to $40,000 a day in today's money. And despite the Montgomery government trying its best to prevent this boycott, the boycotters were still determined, and that they will not stop the boycott until their demand of racially equal buses was met. Finally, a ruling by Brother Vigil ruled that segregated buses was unconstitutional. And after that, the law of segregated buses was lifted, and also was when the demand of the people was met.
The long frustration which this produced in its Negro citizens erupted when a colored seamstress riding in a bus refused to honor the traditions of segregated seating. From this incident grew a protest movement headed by Dr. King, then an obscure pastor of a Baptist church in Montgomery. The protest took the form of a boycott of the city's buses. For 381 days, the Negroes of Montgomery walked or rode in special carpools. The half-filled and sometimes empty buses made the effect of the boycott felt. Animosities buried beneath years of social custom struck dangerous sparks in the tense atmosphere of Montgomery. But Dr. King, himself a victim of these same animosities, continued to inspire his people with his own philosophy of nonviolence. Using peaceful methods, the Negroes of Montgomery won their battle. And with it, they won the admiration and support of millions of their countrymen, black and white alike. After that, in city after city...